Ada Bell's trunk hit the dust before she could prove the driver was lying. Her ticket said Harrow Cattle Company. The board over the gate said Cottonwood Run. Ben Rook would not even look at the paper in her shaking hand. "This is not my destination," Ada said. "Card says Cottonwood, end of the line." The card was tied on in Casper. "My ticket says Harrow." Ben climbed back to his seat. Two ranch hands stopped beside the corral and stared at the mail-order bride who had been unloaded at the wrong man's gate. If that coach left, Ada had no husband, no room, and no return fare. She had no honest road back before dark. What she did not know was worse. Cyrus Harrow had sent her there on purpose. A tall cowboy came from the nearest corral. He was perhaps 37, with a weathered brown hat, a dark vest, and gray eyes that moved from Ada to the trunk and then to the coach. "You lost, ma'am?" he asked. "Your driver says I belong here." The man's expression hardened. "No woman belongs anywhere because a driver says so. I'm Miles Rowan. This is Cottonwood Run, and I ordered no bride." Ben snapped the reins. "Wait," Miles called. Before the coach moved, the screen door opened behind him. A little girl in a white nightdress stepped onto the porch, rubbing sleep from one eye. Her brown hair hung loose around her thin shoulders. She looked at Ada's blue traveling dress, at her bonnet, and finally at her face. "Mama," the child whispered. Ada felt the words strike every person in the yard. Miles went still. Ben stopped pretending not to listen. Ada walked only close enough to keep the child from having to raise her voice. "No, sweetheart, my name is Ada." The girl's hope folded inward, but Ada did not cover the truth with a comforting lie. Miles crossed the porch in 2 strides and crouched beside her. "Nell, this is a visitor. Go find Mrs. Vale." Nell nodded. She looked at Ada once more, then slipped into the house. Miles turned on Ben. "Put the trunk back." "Can't. River is rising, and I've got mail due in Rose Junction." "You were paid to take her to Harrow." "I was paid to follow the card." Ada pulled her paper ticket from the reticule. "Then read this." Ben did not take it. He flicked the reins, and the coach rolled toward the south road. Miles caught the rear rail for 3 steps, but the driver laid his whip across the team. Dust swallowed the coach before Miles could mount a horse. Ada stood beside her trunk at a strange ranch, while a child inside cried as quietly as she could. Miles removed his hat. "Harrow lies 12 miles west. I'll hitch a wagon and take you there now, if that is still where you want to go." The last sentence mattered more than the first. Ada had spent 6 weeks reading promises from Cyrus Harrow about a solid house, a respectable name, and a husband who valued obedience. Until that morning, obedience had sounded like steadiness. In Miles Rowan's voice, choice sounded steadier. "Thank you," she said. "I would like to see the place I crossed half a country to reach." "Then you will. You owe Cottonwood nothing for the ride." Miles called a ranch hand to bring the buckboard. Before it reached the yard, a dull roar came from beyond the cottonwoods. Every horse in the corral lifted its head. Miles looked south, the ford. He saddled instead of hitching and rode toward the noise. Ada remained on the porch with her trunk, uncertain whether she had become a guest or merely stranded freight. An older woman with silver hair pinned beneath a clean white cap came out and offered her a hand. "I'm Ruth Vale, the cook and the only woman here old enough to tell Miles when he's being foolish. Come out of the sun." "The little girl." "His sister's child. Nell lost her mother 2 winters ago. You wore the same shade of blue in the doorway, that's all." Ada understood then that the word had not been recognition. It had been hunger. Miles returned with water to his horse's knees and mud to his boots. Cottonwood Creek jumped the bank. The ford is gone until tomorrow, maybe longer. The Harrow Road crosses it twice. He did not use the river to ask her to stay. He looked angry at the water for taking away a promise he had made. "Mrs. Vale has my aunt's old room," he said. "It is across from Nell and beside hers. The door latches from inside, or I can put up a tent in the yard and Mrs. Vale can stay with you." Ruth snorted. "She will take the room, and you will stop making hospitality sound like a military problem." Ada almost smiled. "The room will do, only until the road opens." "Only until then," Miles agreed. Near sundown, a soaked rider came through the north pasture carrying a telegram pouch from Rose Junction. The message was addressed to Miles, not Ada. Miles read the first line, and anger changed his face. "What does it say?" Ada asked. He held out the page without folding it away. "Rowan, keep Miss Bell 2 days. A wife must show she can accept a change of orders without complaint. I will fetch her when satisfied. Harrow." Ada read it twice because the first reading felt too ugly to be true. The coach had not made an error. Cyrus had arranged a test. Ruth came to the doorway with a dish towel in her hand. Nell stood behind her, paper doll pressed against her nightdress. "Why does Miss Ada look sick?" Nell asked. Even Ruth went quiet when Miles read the order aloud. "He sent me here on purpose," she said. Miles's jaw tightened. "It appears so." "Did you know?" "No, if I had, Ben would be walking back to town with that coach on his shoulders." Ada looked toward the road that the flood had erased. For months, Cyrus had praised her sensible nature. He had asked whether she could run a quiet home and respect a husband's judgment. He had never said he would move her like a marker on a game board to see whether she protested. "Will you answer him?" Miles asked. "No." "No, you will not answer, or no, you will not accept the test." Ada met his eyes. "Both I will speak when he comes." If you enjoy Western stories where a person proves kindness through what they risk, subscribe and ride along with us. That night, supper was laid for 5 at a long pine table. Miles sat at one end. Ruth sat opposite him. Nell took a place beside an empty chair painted a faded blue. Ada began to draw it out. Nell's hand covered the seat. "That was Mama's." Miles started to correct her, but Ada stopped first. "Then I will sit here." She chose a plain stool near Ruth. Nell studied her. "Aren't you going to be Uncle Miles's bride?" "No, I was traveling to meet another rancher. Your uncle and I met this morning." "People can change where they're going." "They can," Ada said, "but they should not change because somebody else pushes them." Miles looked down at his plate. Ada saw gratitude in the way his shoulders eased. He did not need a stranger to fill his sister's chair, and Nell did not need another adult pretending grief could be mended in a day. The meal turned ordinary after that. Ruth complained about the price of coffee. Miles told Nell she had hidden 3 carrots under her napkin. Nell insisted the carrots had crawled there by themselves. Ada laughed before she could stop herself. Miles looked at her as if laughter had not entered that room in some time. His attention held no hunger that frightened her. It held surprise and something careful behind it. The next morning, Ada found Nell at the kitchen table with a paper doll torn through the middle. The child had tried to repair it with flour paste, but one arm leaned backward. "May I?" Ada asked. Nell pushed the doll toward her. Ada cut a narrow strip from an old envelope and pasted it across the back. "A brace will hold better than pressing the torn edges together." "Mama could sew anything." "I believe you." "Could you?" Ada threaded a needle from Ruth's basket and made 3 small stitches through the paper brace. "I can mend some things. That does not make me your mother." Nell's mouth trembled. "I know." Ada set the doll upright. "Names should be true, otherwise they can hurt the person we miss and the person standing here. You may call me Miss Ada." "Will you still help me?" "Yes, helping does not need a false name." Miles was standing beyond the open kitchen door. Ada did not know how long he had been there. The rest of that morning showed Ada how easily kindness could become a chain. Nell followed her to the wash line and asked if she could braid hair, bake round biscuits, or tell when a calf was sick. Ada answered truthfully. She could braid hair, baked square biscuits to waste less dough, and knew nothing about sick calves. But when Nell asked for Laura's blue ribbon, Ada refused. "That belongs to your memory of her," Ada said. "You should decide about it with your uncle." Nell considered this. "Most grown people say yes when they want me to like them." "Then they are asking you to pay for their kindness." "Do you want me to like you?" Ada smiled. "Very much, but I can wait and see whether you do." From the barn doorway, Miles heard that answer too. He had gone there to repair a cracked harness buckle, but his hands remained still. He was not a man given to quick trust. Since Laura's death, 3 women from neighboring ranches had arrived with pies, advice, and obvious hopes. Each had been kind to Nell for an afternoon. One had moved Laura's sewing box without asking. Another had told Nell that a new mother would make her forget being sad. Miles had sent them away politely, and then hated himself for feeling relief. Ada was the first woman who seemed willing to disappoint Nell in order to respect her. At noon, Miles took Ada to see the crossing. He kept several paces between them on the muddy path. The creek had spread through the meadow, brown water curling around fence posts and carrying branches downstream. If Cyrus knew the ford would rise, he might have expected you to be trapped here, Miles said. Would he know? Every cattleman in the valley watches this creek. Ben certainly knew when he ran. Ada stared at the water. The deliberate nature of it deepened. Cyrus had not merely sent her to the wrong name on a map. He had chosen a place where the weather might keep her until he decided whether she had passed. I told him in my letters that I disliked surprises, she said. Why? My father borrowed against our house without telling my mother. We learned when the bank took the stove in November. Since then, I prefer bad truth to pleasant surprise. Cyrus wrote that he admired that. Miles picked up a branch blocking the path and threw it aside. Some men admire a boundary because they enjoy finding where it breaks. Do you? He looked at her. No, I enjoy knowing where to stop. That answer remained with Ada all the way back to the house. A rider from a neighboring spread past the gate as they returned. He slowed when he saw the Harrow destination card tied to Ada's trunk, then looked from Ada to Miles before riding on. By breakfast tomorrow, the valley will say Harrow's bride slept under Rowan's roof, Ruth said from the porch. Ada felt Cyrus's reach even while he was absent. He had stranded her and left her reputation to carry the punishment. Later, he brought her coffee on the porch. The creek still ran high beyond the trees, but the violent roar had softened. Thank you for telling her the truth kindly, he said. Did you think I might let her believe it? Some people like being needed more than they like being honest. Ada understood that he spoke from experience, and some people call control protection because it sounds kinder. Harrow. Perhaps I was eager enough for a home that I ignored the difference. Miles rested his forearms on the porch rail. Why did you answer his advertisement? I had work at a dress shop in Omaha. It was respectable and lonely. Cyrus wrote that he wanted a partner who could make a home in hard country. I wanted to be useful to someone who also saw me. He would have to be blind not to see you. Miles seemed startled by his own words. Ada turned her cup between both hands. You do not know me. No, but I know you refuse to steal comfort from a grieving child. That is more than Harrow learned in 6 months of letters. The warmth that touched Ada had nothing to do with the coffee. She had expected admiration for her housekeeping, patience, or willingness to travel. Miles admired a refusal. By the second day, the river dropped enough to uncover the tops of the crossing stones. Miles spent the morning testing the bank with a long pole. At noon, he came to the porch with mud on his trousers. Tomorrow morning, I can get you across in the high wagon. Ada had been waiting for that news. The disappointment it caused made her angry with herself. You are eager to be rid of me, she said, trying to make it light. No. The answer came so quickly that neither could pretend it meant nothing. Miles removed his hat. I am eager to keep my word. Those are different things. Nell ran past them chasing a yellow dog. Ada watched her disappear around the side of the house. If I asked you to stay, Miles continued, you might wonder whether the flood made the choice for you. If you went to Harrow, you might wonder whether I wanted you gone, so I will say this plainly. I want you here. I will still take you wherever you choose. Ada looked into his gray eyes and saw how much the sentence cost. Cyrus had hidden a command inside a welcome. Miles had placed a clear road inside a confession. Thank you, she said. It was not enough, but it was honest. That afternoon, they walked to the Cottonwood Grove while Ruth and Nell gathered dry branches behind them. Miles told Ada about his sister, Laura. She had come to Cottonwood after her husband died and had turned the ranch house from a bunkhouse with curtains into a home. When fever took her, Miles had kept the blue chair because removing it felt like telling Nell that her mother had vanished completely. "I am not looking for a woman to replace her," he said. "Good, I would not know how. I am beginning to think I might like to know who you are instead." Ada's hand rested against the rough bark. If Miles asked her to stay now, she might never know whether the flood had answered for her. This is a good place to subscribe if you believe the strongest Western promises are the ones that leave a person free. Miles did not touch her. Ada was grateful and a little sorry. The ranch gave them no more quiet that day. One of the hands rode in from the north fence with a calf across his saddle and its mother bawling behind him. The calf was weak from standing too long in cold water. Miles carried it into the hay shed, and Ada followed with Ruth and Nell. Ada stayed out of the men's way. She warmed cloths at Ruth's direction and held the lantern where Miles could see. Nell crouched near the wall, frightened but silent. "Talk to her," Miles said to Ada without looking up. Ada thought he meant the calf. "Nell," he added, "tell her something ordinary." Ada described the dress shop in Omaha. She told Nell about a customer who had ordered a green gown, changed her mind to purple, and then insisted the green cloth had betrayed her. Nell began to smile. By the time the calf lifted its head, the child was laughing. Miles looked across the lantern at Ada. The expression between them was not gratitude alone. They had worked together without pretending to be a family, and somehow that made the moment feel more intimate. When they left the shed, Ada's trunk still stood by the porch. The harrow cart moved in the night wind like a claim Cyrus expected no one to challenge. After Nell went to bed, Miles found Ada on the porch folding the warmed cloths. "You were good with her," he said. "I told a foolish story. You knew she needed to hear about a problem that was not death." Ada folded the last cloth. Children should not have to hold up the grown people around them. Laura used to say nearly the same thing. "I am not Laura's." "I know." Miles stepped closer, then stopped at the distance he always kept. "That is not why I like you." The directness of it made Ada's pulse quicken. "Why do you?" she asked. He considered the question rather than offering an easy compliment. "Because you are kind without making a performance of it. Because you look at a hard truth until it gives you an answer. Because this morning you told me square biscuits are more sensible, and I have spent 10 years pretending not to care why Ruths are square." Ada laughed softly. "That last reason may be the most convincing." "I hope so." For one suspended moment, she thought he might take her hand. Instead, he opened the screen door for her. The restraint made her want the touch more, not less. The next morning, hoofbeats came before breakfast. Cyrus Harrow rode into the yard in a black coat too fine for ranch work. Ben Rook drove an empty coach behind him. Two Cottonwood hands stopped at the corral to watch. Ruth came to the doorway with a dish towel in her hand. Nell stood behind her, the repaired paper doll pressed to her chest. By the time Cyrus dismounted, the whole yard had stopped working. Cyrus dismounted and smiled, as if he had arrived to correct a minor inconvenience. "Ada, I trust Rowan treated you properly. More properly than the man who paid to send me to the wrong ranch." His smile thinned. "I altered a destination card. A ranch wife must manage changes without falling to pieces. You wish to see whether I would obey an order I was never given. I wish to know whether you were adaptable." Miles came down the porch steps. "You have your answer." Cyrus barely looked at him. This is between a man and his promised wife. Ada stepped off the porch so no one could pretend Miles stood in front of her. "I am not your wife. We exchanged letters. I agreed to meet you. I did not agree to be tested like a mare at auction." Ben stared at his boots. Cyrus's face reddened. "You crossed the country at my expense." "I paid half the fare from my savings. Your agent paid the rest. I will repay that amount and be finished with you." "You will do no such thing." Ben lowered her trunk. Ben moved toward the porch. "Do not touch it," Ada said. He stopped. Cyrus gave a short laugh. 2 days in Rowan's house, and already you speak as if you own the yard." "I own my answer. It is no." The word seemed to strip every polite cover from him. "Then perhaps Rowan can afford your principles," Cyrus said. Cottonwood is due to deliver 80 head to my winter buyer, $400 on completion. Without my contract, his crew eats thin until spring. Miles's foreman, Tom Weaver, came from the barn. The other men exchanged worried looks. Ada saw at once that Cyrus had not invented the danger. One hand looked toward the family cabins beside the creek. Another swallowed hard. "You are buying cattle," Miles said, "not a woman." "Today I am buying neither. Load her trunk, let her ride to Harrow, and the agreement stands. Keep interfering and I cancel it." Ada turned to Miles. She could not let him answer before her. "There is no agreement for me to honor. Cyrus, take your coach and leave." "Think carefully. Rowan's men will remember who cost them their winter wages." That was his counterstroke, not force, not a gun. He wanted a whole ranch to make Ada carry its hunger. She looked at Tom and the cowboys by the corral. "I am sorry for the cost, but if I go because he threatens your wages, he will have bought obedience after all." Tom removed his hat. "Yes, ma'am, he will." Miles faced Cyrus. "The contract is canceled. Cottonwood will not send you one steer." For the first time, Cyrus appeared uncertain. "Your note comes due in February. Then I will sell breeding stock in January, and I will carry the loss. Your men may not share your pride." Tom stepped beside Miles. "We can run 20 head to 3 local stores instead of one buyer, slower money, smaller wages. We start with the boss's wage, not ours." Miles glanced at him. "You do not have to do that." "Neither does Miss Bell, that's the point." Another hand said his cousin needed beef at Fort Fetterman. A third knew a hotel buyer in Rose Junction. Their plan was rough and would not replace $400, but one by one they withdrew the obedience Cyrus expected. Cyrus tried once more to regain the yard. He pulled the folded cattle agreement from his coat and held it where the men could see. "Think past today's fine speeches," he said. "This paper means salt, flour, and feed through February. Rowan has no other buyer for 80 head. Miss Bell will be warm at Harrow while your children eat cornmeal." Tom's face tightened. 2 of the hands had families in cabins along the creek. The threat was not empty. For one breath, every man in the yard counted flour instead of justice. Ada felt the old temptation to make herself smaller so everyone else could remain comfortable. Cyrus saw it and smiled. "There is still time to be sensible," he told her. Ada walked to Tom, not Cyrus. "How many families depend on the contract?" "4 here, 2 more drovers if we make the long run." "And if Cottonwood sells in smaller lots?" "We make perhaps half by January, more in spring if the herd winters well." Miles said, "Ada, this is not yours to solve." "I know. I am making sure my answer understands its cost." She faced the men. "I will not promise that your winter will be easy because of a principle. It will not. I can only promise I will not call your sacrifice something you did not choose." Tom looked at Miles. "Boss, sell my spare saddle before breeding stock." "No," Miles said. "I sell my silver watch and take no wage first. Every family keeps its flour account. Put that in the winter plan." The men nodded. Their choice became real because the cost had names: a watch, a saddle, wages, flour. Cyrus could no longer dismiss it as pride. Miles looked at the cattle agreement. "Tear it up or keep it. It buys nothing here." Cyrus shoved the paper back into his coat. He would not even give them the satisfaction of a gesture. But the agreement had already become useless in his hand. Cyrus turned on Ben. "Get the trunk." Ben did not move. "I paid you," Cyrus said. "You paid me to change the card," Ben answered. "You did not pay me enough to listen to this." He reached into his coat and pulled out folded bills. "Miss Bell, this is your return fare. Harrow made me keep it so you could not turn back after Casper." Cyrus lunged one step toward the bills. Ben closed his fist around them and moved beyond his reach. Every man in the yard turned from Ada to Cyrus. Ada took the money. The plain theft hurt more than the trick. Cyrus had planned not only where she would arrive, but whether she could leave. Ben unhitched one saddle horse from the coach team and handed the reins to Cyrus. "You can ride home. I quit hauling for you." Then Ben stripped Harrow's destination card from Ada's trunk tag. He tore it in 2 and dropped both pieces in the dust. Cyrus's last defense was anger. No ranch in this valley will hire a driver who breaks a paid agreement. Cottonwood will, Miles said, for freight, not brides. Cyrus mounted. He had arrived with a bride claim, a cattle contract, a coachman, and the confidence that every man in the yard needed his favor. He left with none of them. Dust rose behind his horse until the cottonwoods hid him. Ada should have felt only relief. Instead, she saw the strain in Miles's face as Tom began calculating winter roots with the hands. "You lost $400, she said. Cyrus lost the idea that he could spend it twice. "You did not owe me that loss." "No, I owed myself the right not to become him." Ada wanted to stay then. That was precisely why she knew she had to leave. "The ford is open," she said. "Will you still take me to Rose Junction?" Pain crossed his face, but he did not argue. "Yes." Nell stood on the porch holding her repaired paper doll. She heard Ada's request. Her small fingers tightened around the doll, but she did not cry out or ask Ada to change her mind. "Are you going to Mr. Harrow?" she asked. "No, I am going to town." "Will you come back?" Ada knelt. "I do not know yet, but if I do, it will be because I chose the road." Nell nodded with solemn effort. "Goodbye, Miss Ada." The high wagon crossed the muddy ford before noon. Miles drove with both hands on the reins. At the coach stop in Rose Junction, he set Ada's trunk beneath the awning and gave her the money Ben had returned. "You could keep this at Cottonwood," Ada said. "It would help with wages. Then your leaving would cost you freedom and pay me for decency. Keep it." "I do not know what comes next." "Neither do I." "Would you want me to write?" "Yes, but only if writing is what you want." The westbound coach arrived. Miles offered his hand to help her aboard. His grip was warm and brief. He stepped back before the driver shut the door. Ada watched him through the window until the road bent. She spent 2 nights in Rose Junction. On the first morning, she rented the back room of a milliner's shop for 1 month and arranged to mend dresses for wages. It was not a grand future, but it was hers. On the second morning, she enclosed Cyrus's letters in a plain wrapper and sent them back unopened at his expense. The milliner, Mrs. Graves, asked no questions until Ada had paid the rent and placed her trunk beside the narrow iron bed. "You planning to settle?" she asked then. "I am planning not to need permission if I do not." Mrs. Graves nodded as if this were an answer she understood. She gave Ada 2 torn sleeves and a black mourning hem to finish. Ada worked until dusk and earned $1.40. It was not enough to build a life in a day. It was enough to prove there was a life available outside either ranch. That evening, a note arrived from Miles. It contained no plea. He wrote that the hotel buyer had accepted 12 head, Tom's cousin wanted 10 more, and the ranch would make it through winter with fewer comforts. Nell had repaired a second paper doll by herself. At the bottom, Miles had written 1 line, "The road is clear in both directions." Ada read that sentence 3 times. Then she bought a ticket to Cottonwood, crossing with her own money. Ben Rook drove the coach. He did not ask why she was returning. He only checked her ticket twice and tied the correct destination card to her trunk where she could see it. When the coach rolled beneath the Cottonwood gate, Miles was repairing a fence rail. He looked up, dropped the hammer, and simply stared. Ada stepped down without waiting for help. "My room in town is paid for a month," she told him. "I have sewing work there if this goes badly. I bought my own return ticket." Hope moved across his face, but he stayed where he was. "And what do you want now?" "I want to know you when there is no flood and no false groom deciding the road." Miles came closer. "May I court you? Properly. 6 months if you will give me that long. You keep your town room as long as you please. You come and go by your own ticket. Nell will not be asked to settle anything between us." Ada smiled. "Those were nearly my terms." "Nearly." "You must let me pay fair board when I stay here until we decide otherwise. And you must tell me when the ranch is in trouble instead of trying to look noble alone." "That second one may take practice." 6 months is time to practice." He held out his hand, "Then 6 months." Ada placed her hand in his. This time, neither of them let go quickly. At supper, the blue chair remained beside Nell. Ada paused near the stool she had used before. Nell touched the chair back. Miss Ada, would you like to sit here tonight? Not because you are Mama, just because you're you. Ada looked at Miles. He did not nod or ask. The choice remained exactly where it belonged. She sat in the blue chair. Nell ate 2 carrots without hiding either one. Then she put down her fork. If Uncle Miles courts you properly, she asked, and if you still choose us after a long time, may I call you Mama someday? Ada reached across the table, palm upward. Nell placed her small hand in it. Someday, Ada said, if you still want to and if all 3 of us choose it, your first Mama will still be yours. Nell looked at Miles. All 3. All 3, he said. Her trunk stood by the wall with the cottonwood card tied where she could see it. Her return ticket rested in her pocket, bought with her own money. The blue chair held her because she had chosen it, not because any man had delivered her there. That night, Ada Bell sat at Cottonwood Run as herself. If this chosen family ending warmed your heart, subscribe for more clean Wild West romances where love waits for a true yes.